Thank you. Hello, welcome everybody to our final session, this parenting session. And tonight we're going to look at how do we help our anxious or worried children return to school. So I'm going to talk, I've got about 5 points that we're going to talk through. If there are any time that you've got a question about anything, like Claire said, please do pop it in the chat post or make a note of it, and we will come back to it because I'm really, really keen for us to have an open discussion at the end. Okay, so how do we help our children coming back into school in September? So as the adults, we need to remember to be calm and to show our young people that we got this, even if we may feel nervous or unsure of ourselves. Although we know that it's normal for your child and for you, and actually for us, for that matter, to have worries and concerns about returning to school, we know that avoiding school will only make the fears bigger and make it more difficult to come into school. So please know that we really care and we really want to work with you to help to support your child. We're all a team, we're all in this together. So let's have a little bit of a talk about worries. What are worries? Well, I like to think about them as little thoughts that get trapped in our heads, and then they can affect our feelings, our behaviours, and the way we come across to others. And that little thought can get trapped sometimes so badly that it can kind of get a little bit out of control and take over. I'm going to give you an example of that. When we were in full-on lockdown and didn't have access to hairdressers, my hair was a complete mess. And I went to meet some friends in the garden, and do you know what? My first reaction was, they are not going to want to talk to me because my hair looks a mess. And I immediately had this thought of, how am I going to deal with this situation? How am I going to get out of it? How am I going to avoid it? And I realized that this thought is then starting to affect how I come across. So my feelings, I'm starting to feel quite suspicious, quite wary, and that then affects my behavior. So I might kind of, the way that I'm walking into the garden, you know, I'm kind of looking out for everybody. I'm a little bit snappy. I might not be my usual smiley self. And even my body signals coming into the garden, you know, I might be walking in a certain way so as you can see my better side or anything like that. You know, it affects, that little trap thought in my head has affected the way that I've walked into my friend's garden. Now, what I want you to think about now is that you are my friend and you're sat in my garden, in that garden that I'm walking into. So I walk into a little bit snappy, a little bit wary, watching out for everything. What are you going to think? Do you think, oh, she's clearly worried about her hair? Or are you thinking, oh, what's up with her? That's really rude. Why has she been like that? What have I done? How dare she ruin my afternoon? Because the way that I'm reacting then has a reaction on you. And I think we have to really be very mindful of these little worries that can then suddenly kind of get out of control. So bearing that in mind, when our young person comes to us with a worry or an anxious thought, we need to be aware of two things. Number one, we want to notice if that worry is spiraling out of control and starting to affect behaviour and feelings and the way that they're coming across to other people. And number two, we want that worry to reach a resolution and therefore not to spiral out of control. So with that in mind, let's look at 5 main points that will help our young people work through their worries and transition much better back into school. So the first thing I want to talk about is being safe. Our aim, even more so now, is to keep each student physically and emotionally safe. We are obviously adhering to government guidelines in how we keep our students physically safe, and we will be constantly reminding them of these measures through assemblies and tutor times and all sorts of activities. But from an emotionally safe point of view, we've been busy as a pastoral team upskilling ourselves for return to school. And whilst we can't predict how lockdown has affected our school community as a whole, we really want to work together to help build connections with friends, with peers, and with staff, as obviously we realise this is important for everybody. And then we ask from you, please, that you have confidence in us that we want the best for your children as you do. We simply ask that you try not to transfer any of your fears onto your child before school, because it's important that we remember that feelings about school start way before they walk through the school gate. Those feelings are starting, well, now I'm sure for a lot of you, they'll start the morning before. So it's important that we help with those fears and we support those fears. We make sure that we have an impact on them and help them to be able to deal with them as positively as we can. So that's talking about safe. Then I want to talk about how we talk to our young people, how we talk to them and how we listen to them. This can also feed the worry. So we listen and we acknowledge their concerns. It's normal to feel worried about going back to school. It's normal to think, what's changed? Will my friends still like me? Will I have done enough work? Will I be in the same classrooms as everyone else? How's it all going to be different? Will I get told off if I don't sanitize my hands enough? Have I got the right hand sanitizer in my bag? All of these thoughts and many, many more are going to be going through your young people's heads over these coming days. To be honest, they're going to be going through your heads too. They're going to be going through our heads as staff as well. But we want you to know that this is normal. We don't know what to expect, so we're going to worry, and that's okay. However, it's how we support the worry that's the most important thing. So once your child has come to you with their worry and they've voiced it, and you've let their feelings feel valued because you've listened very well, like in all the sessions that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, we've listened really well and we've helped them to realize that actually your feelings are really important to me, and I want to help you work through this. So we talked to them about the evidence for that thought. Let's go back to my hair, my lockdown hair. So I'm sat in the mirror and I'm saying, I don't want to go out. I don't want to speak to these people because my hair is a mess. I have to then think about this from another point of view. So the first thing I'm going to say is, what is the evidence? What is the evidence that I have that no one has ever in my life spoken to me because I've got terrible hair? In my 400 years that I've been on this planet, that has never happened. Okay, so that's my first evidence. Then if I'm still sort of worrying about this, can I see my anxiety from another point of view? So, okay, this is a worry. I am a little bit worried about it, but can I see it from another point of view? Actually, if I really think about it and I take myself out of my nerves and sort of think about the whole situation, I'm realizing that all my friends sat in that garden have all got lockdown hair as well. So we're all in the same boat. So when I rationalize it, I realize, seeing it from a different point of view, we're all in the same boat, which makes me feel better. Can I foresee a different outcome? So when we have a worry, you know that we tend to sort of play the whole scenario out in our heads and we say, oh, I'm worried about this, but then this will happen and then that will happen. Can we go through that scenario and come up with a different outcome? So can we see us going into the garden? Can I see myself going into the garden with my lockdown hair and realizing that actually everyone isn't talking about that, they're talking about something else? Or can I visualize myself going into the garden wearing a new shade of lipstick that they're going to look at, or having a funny story to tell them, or kind of visualizing a whole different outcome? So what I want to say is, yes, we will have worries, but let's face it, how often have our worries ever come true? And how often has worrying ever made a difference to the situation? Not very often, I don't think. So from our young people's point of view, we need to try to understand what their concerns are. We need, like I've said before, we need to be inquisitive, but we don't want to interrogate them. We want to listen to them, and we want to actively listen without interrupting or putting your take on their feelings. And we need to remember something that we've talked about a lot, is that silence is good. Don't feel that you need to fill every silence. So when your young person is talking to you and they're struggling over the word, it's absolutely fine for them to be silent, for you to be silent, sorry. Because when you're silent, you're still giving them the space to be curious and notice their thoughts, but also to see how they're connected to their feelings and their behavior, And you start to see that light bulb moment of, oh gosh, when if I'm worried about this, this is making this happen. So don't be afraid of the silences. Now, the things we need to find out when we're talking to them is, why are you worried? What's making you anxious? What do you think might happen? And what is it about the problem that is concerning you? So asking questions like that, those are your inquisitive questions, not your, why do you feel like that? Why isn't that? Why aren't you feeling better about it? Why aren't you feeling more positive? Asking those nice inquisitive questions will help them to open up and help you to explain what the concern is. So use those to check that you've understand their worries. Try not to assume that what you think the problem is or put your feelings onto them. And then what I wanted to say is something I've noticed quite a lot is language really matters. So think about how you talk to your child at home. And if you can tweak one thing that's going to help your child to get back into school more positively, think about how you question your child about their day. What are you most looking forward to about going back to school? Is a much nicer way of saying, are you worried? Are you worried about going back to school? What made you smile today is a much nicer way than saying, did you have a good day? Was it all right? So just thinking about how you phrase and how your manner is when you're communicating with your young person and finding out how they got on really can make a difference. So I've talked a lot about talking, but my final note is please keep communication open. Something that I've picked up this summer, which I really wanted to share with you, is a really lovely way of constantly reassuring our children. There is nothing you can say or do or tell me that I wouldn't want to hear about or try to help you with. I think that phrase is lovely. And if we can say that as much as we can, it really helps our young people to know that, you know what, I'm here. Because believe it or not, parental disappointment is a big fear for our young people. And they need reassurance that we are here to help them through the negative times, as well as to celebrate the good times too. Right, so we've talked about safe, we've talked about talk. Now I'd like to talk about react and how we react to them when they tell us stuff. So sometimes our young people think that we listen to them more intently and value their feelings when they're negative. Isn't it true that we tend to turn a blind eye when things are going well, but we'll really stop and listen if you've got a problem? So our children have learned that they get our full attention when there's a problem. So can we try and change this round a little bit and be really interested in the good stuff and the positive stuff? So as they know that this is valuable too. I know that you do all of that, but I think it's really important that we kind of catch ourselves doing that too. So it's about spending a little bit of time at the end of the day, really listening to your young person and finding out how they felt about their day, or even a little bit of time in the morning, asking them how they're feeling about the day coming up. Now, for most children, they like to talk just before bedtime. Have you found that? When really you want to speak to them right at the end of the day, just to check that they're okay, because let's be honest, you've been worrying about them all day. So we need to be mindful of the times that they want to talk to you, because if we jump in too quickly and try and fix things for them because they're not quite ready to talk, then we're taking away their ability to regulate their own emotions and to build on their own resilience and confidence with dealing with similar anxieties that will occur in the future. So I encourage you, this isn't easy and I can't say I'm particularly good at it myself, but stay calm, stay as silent as you can, and check your face when they are talking to you. So rather than just make sure that you look interested in what they have to say. And personalizing your response to a certain behavior gives children permission to feel a certain way. So, for example, saying something like, I'm feeling really nervous about going back to school next week, and that's making me a little bit snappy at the moment. I'm really sorry, please bear with me. So really good way to normalise the way that our behaviour is linked to our emotions, and it helps them to understand that you're going through it as well. And don't our children seem to learn better by what we do than what we say? So it's useful to be able to vocalise your own feelings and your own anxieties. And try not to buy into the fear and anxiety and kind of transmit that onto your child. Okay, so the fourth point we want to talk about is problem solving. I'm a big fan of problem solving, and I'm sorry I probably talk about it an awful lot. But once we have taken the time to understand our young person's feelings, we can then all work together, I mean us as a school as well, as a team, to help to put a small step plan in place to help deal with the issue. Having a good conversation with your child about returning to school will help with this. So start by trying to focus on the positives. That's how you'll get a good conversation starting. What have you enjoyed about working from home? What do you miss about school? This will help you and us to build a picture of what thoughts your young people have and how we can help them work through this. It may be that you can take some small steps over the next few days to try and help with that. So, for example, I think quite an issue for our young people is going to be the fact that they've got to sit in uniform. They've not been used to sitting in uniform for several months. They've enjoyed kind of sitting around in their own clothes. So maybe uniform's going to feel a bit tight and a bit restricting, and that could be a real fear for them at this stage. So help them over the next few days to maybe sit in front of the telly in their uniform for half an hour and just kind of get used to it and kind of build up and then kind of reward that and just help them build on the evidence that, you know, see, you can do that. It's important with problem solving to help our young people to get their brains to think, yay, I got through that. It was really tough, but I did it and it's made me stronger. Rather than, phew, I got away with that. I hope I can get away with it again. When a situation seems difficult, and I know I've said this a lot, we will want to ignore it. We'll want to avoid it. We'll want to try and make it go away. But if we face it head on, we'll feel better about ourselves, and this in turn creates a healthy self-esteem. Now, in the parenting session I shared last week, we talked about the anxiety cycle, and the anxiety cycle shows that really clearly. So when we have that phew, I got away with it moment, the next stage to that is that sense of relief, which is lovely, but that doesn't last very long, because that's immediately replaced with that even bigger fear of anxiety. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to do it again at some stage. So the more we can support our young people to deal with these situations and go, oh, I got through it, it really will help to build their resilience and their confidence, and will give them a better a foundation to be able to deal with situations that happen like that in the future. So I would encourage you to have what I like to call a chat through. Talk through the issue, talk through what's bothering them, even if, you know, they might think it's really silly, like I'm really nervous about where I'm going to go to the toilet next week, or I'm really nervous that I might go into the wrong zone, or so to have a chat through, talk through the issue with them, and then help them to find a solution. Ask them, okay, well, what could you do about that? What can we do about it? Who can we ask to help with us? So I wanted to give you a couple of examples. Monday mornings can be really hard, can't they? Because you've just had a lovely weekend together, and then a Monday morning, and that's kind of getting them out of bed to get back into school can be really difficult. So chat that through, problem solve it. Could it be that maybe the idea of having a bacon sandwich at break time is something that will help get them through, or a little something in the packed lunchbox, or something at the end of school, or anything that's kind of going to help that situation. It might be that you get up a little bit earlier in the morning and you do something nice before school to help, like some of the mindfulness apps are brilliant. A bit of brain gym. We've been doing something, and I'm probably going to get into trouble for sharing this with you, but we've been doing something called Wake and Shake, and it's a bit like a cheerleader exercise routine that the four of us have been doing in our house, and it's been 10 minutes of silliness and just made us giggle, and it's amazing what a difference that can have to the start of your day. And I'm sorry to anyone watching that who's embarrassed by that, sorry. So once you have helped your child on the way to emotional independence and help them to problem solve, they're going to become more resilient and more confident in other situations. So I wanted to give you a few more strategies to help with that. One is one I like to call the superpower. So when you're having your chat through, you talk to your young person about their superpower. My son went through a situation at junior school where if he was teased about something, he'd react, and his emotional outbursts were so bad that he would end up getting into trouble, not the person who was teasing him. So when we talked about it, I talked to him about his superpower, and he said, well, I'm good with words. So in that scenario, I encouraged him to be clever, not to be rude or arrogant or unkind, but to be clever. So if somebody says something to you, then you match it with a clever statement. And that became his superpower. So when he was in that situation where he knew that he would get upset, actually talking about his superpower just gave him that little bit of confidence to be able to deal with that situation. So that's a good one to use. The second one is the positive script. And I've shared that in our parenting session last week. It's about helping your child to come up with a phrase that will help them. So a little mantra like, I got this, or I'm good enough, or I'm going to have a great day today. We do a lovely exercise with the students in school called a positive shield, where we actually draw a shield. We break the shield into 3 bits, and we look at the first thing is what feature of yourself do you like the most? So it might be my smile, my eyes, my lockdown hair, anything like that. The second section is what are you most proud of? So it might be that you got a mastery in EP. It might be that you can skip 100 times. It might be that you're county swimmer, anything like that that you're proud of. That goes in the second box. And then the third section, which is the one that always makes them smile the most, is what is the best compliment anyone's ever paid you? And when they write those down, and everybody always has one, it's amazing how that makes them just grow 10 feet tall. So then this positive shield that they have, when somebody's trying to knock their confidence, they can hold up that shield and say, okay, you can try and knock my confidence, but this is me, and this is how I'm going to protect myself. So that's a nice little thing to do as well. And then finally, the challenge script. And again, I talked quite a lot about that in last week's parenting session, where we use questions to challenge their thinking and try and help their unhelpful thinking become helpful thinking. So questions like, what evidence do I have to support this thought? Have I jumped to a negative conclusion? Is it really as bad as I think it is? Will it still be as big a problem tomorrow? So those are things that can really help. Okay, so the final thing I wanted to talk about is together. We want to work alongside you. We're a team, and we have the same point of focus, your child or your children. We need to understand that this is going to be different, and we will be working hard to rebuild connections, and we will remain understanding at all times. We're mindful, of course, that everyone's experience of lockdown is going to be different. And we really want our young people to know that we really care. And although we may not have all the answers at the moment, please be assured that we want them to thrive, and we will be listening carefully to them and helping them to cope and to build positive coping strategies. This might not be a quick or an immediate fix, but we want you to know that we are committed to help you and them on their journey. So, to sum up, we've talked about being safe, we've talked about talking, we've talked about reacting, we've talked about problem solving, and we've talked about the fact that we're all in this together. So I just wanted to finish up by saying, encourage your child and children to share their worries, Actively listen without interrupting or putting your take on their feelings. Don't reassure them, but do help them to problem solve. Focus on the positives. Avoid adding your fears on top of theirs. And finally, talk to us. Let us help. The more we know, the better we can understand. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks very much, Jo. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to stop recording.